Welcome back. The United States President Joe Biden has been president of the US for just barely 2 weeks, but has taken a lot of climate action to reverse 4 years of rollbacks and weakening of environmental protection rules under the Trump administration. So, what lessons are in this action for African and indeed Nigerian governments? We saw the views of some environment experts on this. Since 2015, 190 countries have ratified the Paris Agreement, an internationally binding treaty aimed at keeping the increase in global temperature to less than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The countries have each committed to its own nationally determined contribution, NDC, an emissions reduction target, and a plan to achieve it. The agreement works on a 5-year cycle with more ambitious targets expected each time the participating countries reconvene. According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the United States and China alone are responsible for around 45% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This was why the world was stunned. According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the United States and China alone are responsible for around 45% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This was why the world was stunned when the US under Donald Trump's administration pulled out of the Paris Agreement, despite being the world's second largest producer of greenhouse gases.
Most of the companies that are producing the heavy cars that depend on fossil fuel are US companies, Chevrolet and the rest of them. These are companies that run on heavy fuels. Fracking, of course, is done in the United States. Most of the industries that consume or even cause the climate crisis, Chevron, and the rest of them, they are American companies. So what is the US ready to do to ensure that those companies now move away from fossil fuel extraction? So it's good news. Yes, the US is back into the discussions, but we will now have to look closely to see if this government, the new government in US, is going to match word with action, especially in relation to the American companies that are responsible for climate change.
Many have applauded Joe Biden's moves to recommit the United States to the Paris Agreement, describing it as a welcome development.
Well, let me tell you that Donald Trump era was a diplomatic nightmare for everybody, and so it was for climate negotiations and the UNFCCC process. The man just announced that he was pulling out, not even knowing that he cannot pull out. That it actually takes him, I think, like 3 years or so before that could take effect. But thank God we have a new president that has actually signed an executive order now bringing back the United States into the climate change table. Also bringing back the United States into WHO. I think it's a welcome development, no doubt. Not only that, is that President Biden is also undoing all those environment-related laws within the US. But most importantly, also having US back is the fact that climate change also needs to be funded. And it will bring some kind of resources to the UNFCCC system.
Now with this new leadership, the hope of the people and the hope of the climate justice community is rekindled. America, which was one of the clog in the wheel of progress, we now have an American president, an American government that is ready now to jump on the saddle and take the process forward to ensure that the agreement, the Paris Agreement, is implemented to the letter.
To environment experts, the US recommitment to the Paris Accord will motivate most African countries, including Nigeria, to take more stringent actions to combat climate change.
For us, our own government also needs to take action. Gas flaring is happening in Nigeria. There is deforestation in the northern part of the country. There are, the certification and all, vehicular emission, all those kind of problems. I think it's also wake up African governments to be able to take action.
Climate Change Conference. The United States coming on board once again will no doubt reverberate around the globe, particularly for countries that have been lagging behind in their emissions reduction target. The United Nations Climate Change Conference COP26, slated for November this year in Glasgow, Scotland, is the next UN platform for countries to announce more ambitious 2025 and 2030 targets.